You're tuned into the Now Morning Show, your Wednesday edition, where Hannah Lochan, research officer in marine ecology, joins us to give us some insight on what's happening in Tobago waters. Good morning and welcome to the Now.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an important part of the conversation that we need to have because we love to talk about Tobago and Tobago Carnival. But one of the big attractions would be the waters and what's happening in it. So let's start talking about coral bleaching. Now, the title by Coral Bleaching event, almost making it sound like a party, but it certainly isn't.
Absolutely not.
What is coral bleaching?
So corals are animals, the animals that live in the sea, and the hard corals secrete a calcium carbonate skeleton. So that is what makes these corals huge structures on the reef. They also are made up of tiny little polyps. So the polyps actually look like upside-down jellyfish. So they have a mouth, they have a little stomach, and they have tentacles. So they're actually able to feed in the water column. And as the animals, they grow, they reproduce. Also, what is important is that we have something called zooxanthellae that live inside the coral's tissues. So these are just, all this is little tiny algae that live inside the coral's tissues.
Got it.
So these algae photosynthesize, and that photosynthesis process uses light energy and it creates oxygen and sugars, and this is what provides a lot of the nutrients for corals. So corals actually get 95% of their energy requirements from these zooxanthellae that live inside them. And this relationship is ideal at around 28.5 degrees Celsius.
Right.
However, as temperatures increase, this relationship becomes not so stable and the zooxanthellae are expelled from the coral. So when you reach temperatures 29.5 and above, and you have the corals releasing these zooxanthellae, that means they're releasing their main food source. So these zooxanthellae also give the color to the coral. So as you can see, when they're released and the coral looks white, that's actually the calcium carbonate skeleton being exposed.
Thorough, detailed explanation as to what coral bleaching is. No, and I'm glad that you went that deep because we now have a sense of, okay, the heat, the temperatures, the global warming situation is impacting the oceans, and that is an ecosystem that a lot of people thrive on, not just from the standpoint of like fishermen and those others, but tourism. We go to see these reefs.
No, for sure.
So in terms of the usual or the insight or the impact, in terms of how it impacts the ocean itself, we understand, but we also have a sense that it impacts us as humans as well.
Well, yeah, so it's important to understand the value of our coral reefs. So we have valuations done for Tobago. It's been observed that up to 40% of persons who come to Tobago come for coral reef related activities, whether it's diving, whether it's going to the beach. All of these are coral reef related, and that brings in about $40 million US. We also have other really important ecological factors that coral reefs provide, such as shoreline protection. So you have Buku Reef right off of Southwest Tobago. So you have that reef that protects Southwest Tobago from any big waves coming in. If those big waves were to come in straight onto Stobie, that would be a whole different story. So the protection that it provides is also a multi-million dollars as well. So it's so important that we protect these ecosystems.
Right. And in that case, let's get into that protection. What is being done by the IMA or other organizations as well? Right.
So the IMA has been monitoring coral reefs since 2010. So we had a major bleaching event in 2010. We observed up to 50% loss of corals. And since then, we've had a steep decline, but it's now stabilized. So we have about 18 to 20% coral cover around Tobago. So not the worst, but it's not that great. And what we want to do is try to help this. We also know that we see very few juvenile corals on the reef. So this just shows that we don't have that much recovery. Because I mean, if you want to build populations, what you need is young. You need new populations, you need new generations to build the coral reefs. So that data is really important as baseline data for IMA. That is great for us to track any future disturbances. We also work closely with NOAA, so that's the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and they work out of the United States. So they use cutting-edge technology, high-end resources to track the weather events, track temperature and that sort of thing using satellite imagery, and that is data that's shared with us. So what NOAA does is actually release coral bleaching alerts. So for countries and for regions, they would look at the heat stress that is accumulating in the ocean in different parts of the world. And they would say, okay, Trinidad and Tobago, it's heating up. You all are now at an alert level 1. So that means we can expect to see coral bleaching. Or right now, Trinidad and Tobago is at alert level 2. And that means you can expect to see significant bleaching and also a lot of coral mortality. So that's what they really help us with.
Now, as much as you're explaining this to us, there is work being done to monitor and to perhaps, as you mentioned, recovery is also a goal. Is there anything that the average Trinbagonian can do to assist with this process?
Yeah, no, for sure. So the IMA has our platforms where we can take in requests. We can take in reports from persons who observe bleaching. So this can be done via the IMA See It app, or you can email incidents@ima.gov.tt. And so far we have collected reports. We're not in the reef 24/7, but it's really beneficial for us when divers go diving or persons go snorkeling, just to keep us updated of what you're seeing, and then we can further investigate.
Right. And across the screens from time to time, we have shared contact numbers and the databases that you can use to share the information, the photos, the videos, the details of coral bleaching, should you see any across Trinidad and Tobago waters. So, of course, there are a number of numbers that you can use that will be on your screens from time to time, but the Institute of Marine Affairs, you can use 634-4291 and extension 1310. You also have mobile numbers that you could use, 684-8121 and 294-4719. We're getting digital and we're making sure that we share the information. So that's good stuff. And it means then that it's not that we are waiting till we reach to any other levels before we take some action.
Oh, no, absolutely not. So the Institute of Marine Affairs, we have implemented the Marine Resilience Initiative project. So this project focuses on restoring coral reefs and seagrass beds around Tobago, as well as building ocean stewardship through our Marine Resilience Network. So we work really closely with SECOR International. So they are lead agency in researching coral restoration using sexual-based strategies. So we have begun implementation of their technologies in Tobago. So what they do is they use a coral seeding approach. So we actually collect the eggs and sperm from corals, and we fertilize that in the lab. So this helps increase the number of corals that survive, that might not survive in the wild. And what's great is that they have new research that showed that the corals that they produced using this strategy actually survived and had a higher heat tolerance than the corals that they found in the wild. So we're really excited to be part of this collaboration and looking forward and hoping that it works for Tobago as well.
Beautiful stuff. I'm glad that we're ending on a high note.
Yes,
because the bleaching is happening.
Yes.
But we are making strides towards improving the conditions and making sure that our coral reefs in Tobago will eventually bounce back, if you will, from this bleaching event. So we know it's happening. We know what we can do as individuals to make sure that we support institutions to make things better. Altogether, we all benefit from the beautification of our Tobago waters. So we appreciate very much that Hannah made the time this morning to give us the insight on what we can do, what's being done, and what will be done. Hannah Lochan, the research officer in marine ecology, giving us some insight into the coral bleaching event taking place in Tobago. And guys, you can help. Stick around though, birthdays are coming up after the break.